What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Triple Threat Podcast YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be going over the Mount Rushmore, in my opinion, the Mount Rushmore of Survivor. Before we begin, I'd like to say, if you guys enjoy this type of content, please like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel grow, and it is really greatly appreciated. Now, before we begin, and I start going on, first of all, I want to mention that this is, of course, two things. Of course, number one, this is purely opinion-based. This is not a fact, obviously. And number two is that this video has major spoilers to all seasons of Survivor, both Survivor America and one spoiler, or not one spoiler, but spoiling one season of Survivor Australia. So just letting you that know beforehand that there will be spoilers, because obviously we're talking about, Mount Rushmore consists of winners. So, not all winners, but we'll get into that. But anyway, spoiler warning, and yeah, so we're going to go ahead and get on to it. All right, so now to begin, what is a Mount Rushmore? Well, I'm not going to explain about America's Mount Rushmore, but basically what it is the four people that represent Survivor in the biggest terms, not necessarily exactly the best players, but the four people that best represent the show. Now, for me, in a game like Survivor, there's two big aspects of being a good player. You're either a good player, as in you're good at the game, or you're a good player, as in you are likable. So, examples of good players of the game would include someone such as Richard Hatch or Russell Hantz. And then on the other hand, as far as likable players, some people that are considered very likable, but maybe not as good at the game, would be somebody kind of like Ozzy or Kobe. They're good at the game, but they're very likable. The reason they are brought up as all-stars and really good is because of how likable they are. They're good at the game too, but it's really about their likability. So, with that being said, I think Survivor's Mount Rushmore would represent the people who are the best and some of the favorites, and you'll see what I mean in a second. Alright, so now let's start off with the first head that I would put on the Mount Rushmore, and we're going to be talking about Cirie Fields. Now, I know this sounds kind of hypocritical, that I'm going to go ahead and put Cirie first. Not first as in I think she's the best, but just first as I'm putting, it's just four people, not necessarily in any particular order. Now, Cirie is the only non-winner on my list here, and I believe that she has to be on this list just because of how likable she is. Compared to some of the other very likable Survivor contestants, I don't think anyone has found as much fame as Cirie has as far as being likable, and it also has helped her get further in the game. So, some stats about Cirie. She's never won the game, obviously, as I mentioned, nor has she sat at the finale of the game. She's been the last person voted out twice, and she's the only player in Survivor history that I know of right out of the bat who has been evicted without getting 0 votes cast against them. And that is a reference to Survivor Second Chances, where Cirie was voted out by everyone else having an idol. Sorry, that is not Second Chances, that is Game Changers, which we'll talk more about Survivor Game Changers later on down this road. And I think with all that being said, what that shows is that Cirie is a very dangerous player when it comes to being very likable. And it's all social. As far as physicality goes, no offense, Cirie has never been a physical threat in the game. So she has always had to rely on strategical smarts and social smarts to make it through. And she is definitely one of the most social. I thought about making a sort of video, two things I really like is Survivor and Madden. So I thought about in the future making a video talking about like what I would give an overall rating to each Survivor player. Cirie would be a 99 overall in both strategical smarts and social smarts. Probably the best in the game in social smarts. However, she has never been able to get to the end of the game. She has played a record-breaking 6 times. It's the most anyone's ever played. Of course, it is 5 in American seasons, and then she also played in Survivor versus the World, where she, again, I don't know if it was 3rd or 4th, but she was the last person voted out. She didn't make the finale. She was at the end, though. So in my mind, Cirie is just an all-time player, and that is why she's on my Mount Rushmore. Now, we'll be honest, as for the next 3, I'm not going to get into this really, but Cirie is the person that I do believe is the most likely to be off the mountain. That means, not actually on the Mount Rushmore itself. Now, there's a couple people I've written down here that I think could replace her. This includes Richard Hatch, Sandra Diaz-Twine, Ozzy, and Russell Hantz. I don't know Ozzy's last name. I could have looked it up, but I didn't. I couldn't be bothered. But anyways, I think all four of these people I could see people putting, Richard as the first winner, Sandra as the original 2-time winner, and also a pretty good player. Ozzy is being very physical and very likable. Her and Sari him and Sari go very hand in hand. They kind of could be flipped and flopped with the same. They're very likable, but struggle to get to the end. Although I do believe Ozzy got to the end before, but I could be wrong. Yeah, so those people I could see, but for me, I think Sari being so likable has pushed her over them guys. Also, just playing 6 times is crazy. I think her and Ozzy, Ozzy has also played 5 American seasons, but he's never played the sub-season. And also, Sari was on The Traitors and Big Brother, which again, this has nothing to do with that. But she did good on both. She also, well, I'm not going to spoil them seasons because I didn't say that at the beginning. Okay. So now on to the second person I'd put on the Mount Rushmore, and this is going to be Tony Vanchos, the winner of both Survivor Cagayan, Brain vs. Brawn vs. Beauty, and the winner of Survivor Winners at War. If the second win isn't enough to put him on here, I don't know what could put someone on here. He is one of 2 people to ever win Survivor 2 times in the American 49 seasons. So not counting Parvati, for right now at least. And this is just an amazing feat to win the game 2 times. Again, only 2 people has ever done it in the American seasons, the other one being Sandra. And if anyone has watched Survivor Pearl Island, Survivor Heroes vs. Villains, Survivor Cardigan, and Survivor Winners at War, you would know that Tony probably had a better game both times than Sandra did with both of her games combined. No offense, it's just Sandra's strategy to winning the game was not a pure physical, strategical, social mastermind like Tony was. Especially in Winners at War, he absolutely whooped that game, and that's 20 winners. So I mean, the stage couldn't be higher. And like he said in his own diary room session, it was like the Super Bowl. It was like Survivor's version of the Super Bowl, and he was the Super Bowl MVP. So I mean, it's hard to deny. Now, the only thing that Tony has going against him, as far as being one of the best of all time, and being on the Mount Rushmore, is in Survivor Game Changers. He was the second person voted out. Yeah, that isn't good. Being the second person voted out, that does show, and he did show a lot of recklessness and stupidity. He immediately out of the gate ran off, tried to find an idol, got voted out, tried to face off against Sandra, which I guess may be some people's argument to putting her over him. But I can't, because I think the times he's won, and then also he came back on Survivor Australia versus World, which I have my own opinion on Survivor Australia and if that season really counts as a full-fledged season. But he did pretty good on there too before he was voted out due to kind of just being a big target. Being the only 2-time winner in the show. I mean, come on. They had to take him out at some point. So I do think it was a fair takeout. And so that's where Tony places on this Mount Rushmore. All right, so next up, we got Parvati Shallow, the winner of Survivor Fans vs. Favorites, and the winner of Survivor Australia vs. World. Again, Survivor Australia vs. World was a very small season full of some of the best players from both Survivor America, Survivor Australia, and I think there was another one thrown in there too, but I can't quite remember because I did not actually watch the full. I just watched the final episode and the first episode and got like a highlight reel of Survivor Australia vs. World. And this is where I've came to the opinion that season really don't count in the long terms when comparing it to the other Survivor seasons. It's Australia too. It's not the fact that it's Survivor Australia, it's the fact that it was like 13 days long with only like 12 people. So that's why I'm not absolutely if Parvati would have won a second full American Survivor season or a full-fledged Australian season, this would be a very different tune. Although I'm still giving her praise. I mean, I think she's the second best player to ever play Survivor. But anyways, to get into why. So Parvati originally played in Survivor Cook Islands, where she made it pretty far before being cut. She had a very good social game. She's always been known as the person who would flirt her way to the end. And she came back on Survivor Fans vs. Favorite as a favorite, formed one of the most dominant alliances in Survivor history, along with Sari, who I also have on this list. They were known as the Black Widows. And she went on and she won the game in a very dominant fashion, and then came back again on another all-star-ish season. This was a full-fledged all-star season, Survivor Heroes versus Villains. And in my personal opinion, I think she played the best game of the 3 finalists, but she was beat out by Sandra. I don't want to say because of a bitter jury, but I mean, the other finalist was also Russell Hantz, so there was a little bit of bitterness in that jury. But Sandra inevitably got the win, and you know, I, it's what it is what it is. But again, another amazing season from Parvati. Then she came back in Heroes versus Villains, and not Heroes versus Villains, Winners at War. And although she didn't do as good as she did the first couple times, she still definitely played her same game and tried it. And then she's also appeared on other shows such as The Traders and Deal or No Deal Island, which again, similar to what I said about Big Brother and Traders, I'm not going to get into that because I didn't give a spoiler at the beginning of it, and it really don't matter for this Mount Rushmore. But it is evident that she's one of the better players. She also, similar to Suri, I would think would also have the strategical and social abilities maxed out, like 99 overall. But the one thing she adds that Suri probably don't add, or that she doesn't add, is that Parvati is also pretty good at physical challenges, especially in her earlier seasons. So, yeah, it's undeniable that she's one of the best players. And she's also pretty popular, which, again, I'm not basing any of this out of popularity at all. Even entertainment value is different. You can be very entertaining and still be insanely unpopular. I think a great example of that is Rizzo. A lot of people do not like Rizzo, but you gotta admit, even if you hate the guy, you gotta admit that he's he's a good character for the show. So, but anyways, so that's where Parvati lands. So with Suri, Tony, and Parvati, I'm pretty sure everyone can guess who is the last person to make it onto this Mount Rushmore, and it's gonna be Coach. No, okay, it's a joke. It's gonna be Boston Rob. Boston Rob is without a doubt the best Survivor player in my mind. I don't think that it comes close. Other than if you push and argue Parvati or Tony, I could bend if you give like a lot of good examples. So, and I'll get into the negatives about Boston Rob's game too. But so Boston Rob, in my mind, is the best player. So that's why I kind of saved him for last, and he's also my favorite player as well. So Boston Rob first played in Survivor 4, where he was actually voted out pre-jury. A lot of people don't realize that he actually didn't do good on his first season, but he was so liked, and I think the producers, including Jeff Probst, found so much potential in him that they brought him back for Survivor All-Stars, where he played what some people consider to be the best game in Survivor history. Got to the end and got second to his future wife, Amber. Which also he proposed at the thing, which that's just a fact, has nothing. Getting married in Survivor is not a skill. But he then would come back later to Survivor Heroes versus Villains, where he would play another pretty good game, although he was cut early. I think that is his earliest loss, I believe, is in Heroes versus Villains, but I'm not quite sure on that. But he would again play and end up affecting the game a lot because he was a part of the villain tribe, which ended up, running the game at the end. I mean, at the end, it was 3 villains at the end. So it helped kick things off. Also, then he came back later in Survivor's Redemption Island, where he won the game in a very dominant fashion, which I will step in here and say, although it was definitely probably that's a lot of... Anyways, he was definitely the most powerful player and probably one of the most unanimous wins of all time in that season. However, that cast definitely has the combined lowest IQ out of every single season. There wasn't really that much competition for him at all. And I do definitely see that, so I'm not blinded by that game there. So he definitely had some issues with the cast being poor, but he himself could not control that, and he still won. So that's more of a fault to the producers. So you could say, oh, they were trying to give him a win. That's probably true. I mean, Rob and Russell both came back in that season. They were both absolute, at that time, without a doubt, the 2 best to never win the game. Still to this day, I would argue Russell Hantz is one of the best to never win. And then Rob later on, they built a giant statue of him in Survivor Island of the Idols, where he played as a mentor to players. Although that season was horrible, that was pretty good to have him and Sandra come back. As I really think they should do that again soon with 2 other players. I don't know who, but maybe do a new era one. I don't know. And also, I would really do. He came back in Winners at War, and at that point, he didn't have. He's age had kind of got to him, and in that big Winners cast, and also having Amber, in the season as well. She got voted out first, I believe. Not first, but she was like in the first episode, she was booted off. And so, as time went on, he definitely had smaller appearances. Him, like as I mentioned with Parvati, Suri, and Tony, has came back on multiple different shows, including The Traders again. I didn't realize that all four of these had been on Traders until I just started this. Diorno Del Island. And there's another one. Oh, he nearly won The Amazing Race, which I believe Parvati was also in The Amazing Race at some point, but I could be wrong. But anyways, with all that said, I definitely think that Rob has, he has he's probably the best strategical mind to play the game. And he's also pretty good, especially back in his earlier seasons with challenge threat and social threat. But, with anyone who plays multiple times, as time goes on, their threat lowers. So that is it. That is my Mount Rushmore Survivor, Suri, Tony, Parvati, and Rob. Before we close out this video here, though, I would like to say, with Survivor 50 coming up, do I think any new era people could be on this Mount Rushmore? And the answer I'm going to give is actually no. I don't think there's anybody from Survivor 41 onward that can compete with any of these four. The only way I could see that is if D manages to go on and win again with another dominant season. Maybe she could throw Suri off the throw Suri off the mountain. But other than that, I don't see it happening. I don't see a new era person, at least now, in like 10 years and like Survivor 80, maybe somebody has came along, does play the game masterfully. Because again, Tony, Parvati, and Rob are kind of up there, but there's not that, there's a lot of room at the bottom of that mountain to climb up it. So you never know. But again, if you guys enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe. I have put a lot of time and effort into this specific video, trying to edit it all and make it good. And if you guys would like to see more, please let me know in the comments what you'd like to see me do. I'm open to do some more Survivor videos like this. I really do enjoy talking them through. The editing process is kind of annoying, but hey, we'll do it. And remember, guys, that the Mount... and let me know who you guys think's on your Mount Rushmore. If I'm wrong, please let me know. I'm welcome to hear your guys' opinions, and I might even make another video talking over them if you guys would like that. And one last thing, remember that the Triple Threat Podcast is live every single Friday night at 7 o'clock. We are going to be going over Survivor 50, your guys' comments, and more. So please be there. And thank you guys for watching.